Hey everybody, welcome to Build a Website from Scratch with HTML and CSS. This video is called Forms. In this lecture, we're going to learn about HTML forms and how to code them. Let me show you what we're going to be building. This is an HTML form. This is a legend. It lets you know what the content of the form is about, so profile info, and it has a bunch of form inputs that have something to do with profile info. This big border around here is called a field set, and it groups everything visually so that you can see that it's all related. Then we have a series of form elements or inputs. This is a text input, which lets you type text in here, like your name. And the next one is an email input, so you could type an email. You can really type anything in here, but this is where you would type your email, and then down here we have a password input. And it's an input that lets you type passwords so that you can write a password and not see the characters you're typing. Then we have a couple radio buttons that let you choose one option, not both. That's the behavior that the typical behavior of radio buttons. Then there are checkboxes, which lets you check any and or all of them. Then there's a drop-down select menu here. A text area, which lets you type whatever text you want, like a biography or a message or whatever, and a submit button, which will submit the form. Just as a quick note, we're just going to be building the HTML of the form, just the front end of the form, so it's not actually going to be submitting anywhere or sending an email or saving anything to a database because that involves some server-side programming, and that's not in the scope of this course. Perhaps in a later course we'll do something like that. So let's jump right in. Go to your code editor and create a new file in your lesson 3 folder we've been working with called forms.html, and then write out the basic HTML structure we've been doing with the doc type and the structure, and then give it the title of forms. So then the first things first, code a form tag, and within the form tag we're going to add a field set tag. The field set is what adds the border, and then a legend tag, and a legend is that title at the top of the field set that cuts in at the top left of the border and lets you know what the form is about. So profile info. Save that, check it out in your browser. So you can see I have a field set and a legend, and the legend cuts right here at the top of the field set. It looks quite nice. Alright, within the field set, because we want the inputs to be within that box, let's add an input and give it the type of text. So that is an attribute called type, and the value is text. And then let's close that, save, and just check it out. So there we go, we have a form input right here, but we don't have anything letting us know what the form is. We don't have any sort of label or something that tells us that this is for your name. So let's put some text before here. Name. Save that. So there we go, name. This is where you type your name. And just as a quick little kind of bonus, you can add another attribute here called placeholder. And it's an HTML5 feature that only works on modern browsers. And it lets you add some placeholder text to give the user just a little extra tip about what they should write in the input. So for example, let's say your full name here. Save that, check it out. So there you go, name, your full name here. So it goes away when you start typing, and it comes back when you erase everything from the input. Perfect. Let's move on to the next one. Copy this input and the text before it and paste it below it. And let's say email, and then give it the type of email, and placeholder, let's just put like a generic email, like your@email.com. Save that, preview it. Name, your full name here, email, your@email.com. Perfect. Let's add another input below there. Password. Type will be password. Placeholder, we won't put a placeholder because you don't see what's in the password anyway, and it's pretty straightforward. Save that. Check it out. Name, email, password, and it's a password input. Works good. So the next thing we're going to want to do, because we don't actually want the form inputs to be just horizontal like this, we want them to be stacked on top of each other. So we're just going to add a break tag. A break tag is a single tag that you add that looks like this, BR, and you don't need to close it. It's self-closing, and what it does is it breaks a new line. So these guys are actually all on the same line as you saw in the preview there. But we want to break them onto separate lines, and adding a break tag will do this. Watch this first input. So it broke a new line so that this could fall down below it. And that's because inputs are inline level elements by default, and so they all kind of float up beside each other as opposed to stack on top of each other because they don't take up a whole line themselves. A break tag is a block level element, and it will break a new line so that you can have things stack on top of each other. Another way of doing this effect, achieving this effect, is with CSS, but we're not there yet, and we're just going to use break tags right now. So I added the other break tag. Looks good. Let's leave the break tag for the password right now, because below here we're going to add 2 break tags, because we want to break 2 lines to add a little extra space below here, because we're going to add another group of elements here. So let's say input, and we're going to give it the type of radio, because we want a radio input, one of those little circles that you can click on. And let's put the text after it and say male. We're going to say this is the gender section. So let's type gender and put a break tag after it so it breaks onto a new line. Save that, and let's see what this looks like. Gender, male. There you go, and you can click it. But there's a little bit more to it. Usually you have more than one radio button that lets the user choose more than one option. Female. So male, female, save that. So gender, male, female. So that looks pretty good, but there's a couple issues with this. If I were to click on this radio button, now they're both clicked and you can't toggle between them. Also, they're on the same line. I want it to break below like the inputs above. So let's start by adding a break tag right here after male. Save that, and now it should break on a new line. That looks good, but we saw the issue of both radio inputs just staying selected once I've checked them. And you solve that by giving an attribute to both of the inputs that are related, the name attribute and the value of the inputs that are related need to be the same. So let's say the name of this is gender, and the name of this input is gender. Save that and refresh. So now if you checked male and then checked female, you can toggle between them because you can only choose one option, not both. So that's the radio buttons. Below here, let's add a couple more break tags. Space this out so it looks better. And we're going to add another type of input, which is called checkbox. So it's different from radio because you can check any or all of them at the same time, whereas a radio can only select one at a time. So input, and the type will be checkbox. And the text after this first checkbox will be, I have a laptop. But before we do that, let's add some text here and say type of computer. Put a break tag after so it falls below it. Type of computer, I have a laptop. Perfect, and you can check it and uncheck it. Let's add another value here. So copy this and paste it. I have a desktop. Save that, check it out. Perfect, but they're all in the same line, and you know what to do there. Just add a break tag after the first value. There you go, I have a laptop, I have a desktop. All right, below there, let's add a couple more break tags to give some more space. And we're gonna add age. Put a break tag after that, and we're gonna use the select element. It's another form element called select. And select behaves a little differently than the normal inputs or the checkboxes because it has a little drop down that pops below. So within the select menu, you add options. And this is where you add the options you can choose in the select menu. So I'm going to say 0 to 20, copy and paste this a couple more times. Then I'm going to say 20 to 40, and then one more option, I'm going to say 40 plus. You can put as many options as you want. Save that and check it out. Age. And here's your drop-down menu with your 3 options that you added. You can have 2 options, you can have 200 options. You typically would see this when you choose your state or your province or your territory or your country or whatever. You can use your imagination with what you want to use there. Alright, so next we are going to add a couple more break tags just to get more space again. And then we're going to add a text area, the big text box where you can type a message or a biography or something. And let's say biography. And put a break tag after that little text there. And text area. Text area is not self-closing. You need to have a closing text area tag like this. And you can also add some attributes here. So I'm going to say calls for columns and put 30 columns, and rows, let's say 3. So 30 columns wide and 3 rows tall. Save that, check it out. Biography, there's your text right there, 30 columns wide, 3 rows tall. You would normally do this in CSS, but like I said, we're not quite there yet, so we're just going to use straight up HTML to achieve the effect we're looking for. And then we have one last thing. We have 2 more break tags to get some space. And inputs, another input, and the type of the input is a submit button. So that's how you get a submit button, input type submit. Now if I were to save this and preview, you already have the submit button, it looks good. But what if you want to change the text that's showing in the submit button itself? You add an attribute called value, and you can put whatever you want in the value here. So save my info, save that, check it out, save my info. So there we go, that's really it for the forms. We have the field set border around it, the legend, the text input, the email input, the password input, the male and female radio buttons right here, and the computer type checkboxes. We have an age with a drop down, a select menu. And we have a biography section here where you can write your biography or whatever in a text area. And then you have an input right here that you can submit your info. There is one thing that we can add, however. Let's add one more input button. Type won't be submit, it will be reset. And let's change the value to clear form. Save that and check it out. So now we have another button beside it that says clear form. And what the reset button does is it resets the form values back to nothing if you just wanted to restart over. So for example, and let's just say I'm not 40 plus, but I'm just going to say that. And I say, you know what, never mind, I don't want to send this form. Clear form. And it clears everything back to 0. So that's how you do that. So that's it for forms. I'll see you in the next lecture.